awesomest things in the game. Have to be really careful with those Zealots to make sure that the Marauders are able to do enough damage, because Marauders are not quite that good against Zealots. Tanks are good against Zealots, though, and look at this huge damage being done by the little one. Real awesome, real fun. Now, anytime you see this sort of stuff, if this were a shoutcast, I would just be screaming, "Oh my goodness, little one, will he be able to win?" But if I'm watching a replay, I'm going to notice things like, hey, there's a probe here. Hey, there's a probe here. What about these other buildings? What's going on in the bases? Okay, cool. Oh, looks like Immortal's coming up. Always a good emergency technique. Just Chrono Boost some Immortals. Yeah, wow, looks like little one is macroing hard. Here comes a command center, but still no rocks down. Kind of a little bit dangerous. Kind of a little bit problematic. So definitely want to say to be aware of that sort of thing. Here come the Zealots. Oh, God. Oh, did they just get charged? I'm actually going to back up because those guys, yeah, look at that. Look at how huge the charge is. This charge is going to help so much against these Marauders. And again, remember how I was saying that this is a more immobile army for the little one? Yeah, here it is. Can't quite sprint forward and kill off the Nexus. Has to deal with this whole mess. Oh, God, huge storm. Not nearly enough for Stim with the Marauders. Zell's just going to be able to slowly pick away. And what we're starting to see is a little bit more flimsiness to the attack here. Yeah, it's looking like little one's getting pushed back. And see, this is exactly what I was talking about the long-term planning. We'll actually talk about that right when this good old bout ends up concluding. Zealots whack away. Stalker blinks to another completely unsafe location and gets shot in the face a bunch. So, there's this idea of momentum with a push, or just with your gameplay in general, which is like this thing where after your first attack, your next attack is even scarier, even stronger. That's why I talk about upgrades, that's why I talk about expanding, all that good stuff. So, when we look here at White Ra's play, it's starting to have some good momentum to it. Yeah, you know, he held off this attack, but wow, yeah, I really want that forge to upgrade. God, I want that forge to upgrade. But, you know, he has these 8 gateways up. Okay, he's getting some Immortals. This gold expansion is probably the biggest step for momentum, but also a lot of key upgrades. Charge for the Zealots, Storm for the Templar. Does he have the Kadarin amulet? Yes, he can warp in and Storm. But back in the little one's base, it's just keep doing what I'm doing harder. You know, this push just ended. There's no upgrade to make the next push stronger. There's just more barracks making more units of the same type. And you'll note how strong the little one's push was beforehand, but sometimes it's better to make your push a little bit weaker so that your long-term game plan is much stronger, because little one needed to do huge damage with that push, or I should say needed to do more damage with that push to make it justifiable. And in the meantime, little one is just continuing to expo. Oh yeah, look at this. Move by White Ra, placing some pylons around, expanding, placing a cannon. Cool. Love this pylon. This is probably one of my favorite parts of this whole game, is White Ra actively doing that sort of thing. Terran being super aggressive. This is looking a little bit StarCraft 1-ish up to this point. Big pushes by Terran, except there's a little bit more mobility. These tanks are going to slow things down a little bit, but still, nice, decent movement going on. White Ra getting to out-expand his opponent. Little one, ooh, yeah, now that he's taking a position up in the center, can just siege these tanks and has already secured this left area. But, oh, yes, here comes the good old drops. But now I want you to just note how different this feels, because I've gotten so many people to ask, why don't people use Warp Prisms more? And I always have said that I really think that they're the most underused unit in the game. And also, that portrait is sweet. Look at that. What is going on there? That is awesome. But either way, so look, oh my god, if this were Brood War, it would just be a storm drop. But look, there's the storm going down, killing huge amounts of stuff. And what does White Ra do? He goes into phasing, and he's just going to warp in some Zealots, just to be obnoxious. Right, just to do a little bit more damage. Most players would just run back from the storm, and then go back to mining. But little one forcing his issue, pulling his whole army back. Here comes the other huge drop here. What's the biggest problem that you always have with your dropships, your shuttles, with anything that you're trying to harass with? Is keeping it alive. Well, the Warp Prism helps reinforce itself. So already these Stalkers are here, killing off this missile turret. No way little one can defend this properly. So little one is instead just going for a huge push. Doesn't get these tanks sieged up in time. Oh god, one of the hugest issues with this army mix. Now, I just want to note how that happened. What was going on in the little one cam, right? So as we come here, let's actually slow this down a little bit and go to his camera view. I think this is actually the normal game speed. Yep, there's the good old scan that happens there. And uh-oh, wait a minute, there's a huge bunch of more units that are coming up here. Huge storms going off, no ability to get up here and kill off any of these Templar. There's just not enough lead action with this army. Oh god, brutal storm. Tanks didn't have at all a chance to siege up. Oh, ouch. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the little one only is able to place one scan. If you have a flying unit, you can spot a little bit more. You can siege the tanks up and skirt the edge with a Raven or so. And look at this, White Raw still doing more aggression action up here. Getting stuff with his Archons. Need to be so much more active about getting turrets up as Terran. Here comes the Archon. Look at this great harassment up here. And meanwhile, the little one is trying to regroup, trying to do some sort of aggression, but oh yeah. This whole expansion has never had to sweat once. Not at all. Little one having this very interesting unit composition. This very Marauder-heavy mix with a lot of tanks, backing up, getting even more Marines. Feeling a little bit sad we don't see too many more ghosts here. Oh god, warping in more stuff. This just like never ends. This is one warp prism was able to do all this damage. So huge. Makes you really start to see how this can be a very popular late game transition, just getting a warp prism. You always hear me talk about eliminating redundancy, extending the purpose of buildings. Suddenly, your robotics facility isn't just some unit that you use to get the observer and that's it. You can easily pop out one warp prism, and if you're gateway heavy, like White Ra has been, look at the amazing stuff that you can do. Just with this one little bit of harassment. Right now, look at all these more units that are having to pull back. Suddenly, this looks very vulnerable. Why not warp in stuff here and attack there? No reason! Do it. Do it. Or you can just warp in here and have just a big old army. And also we have carriers coming out. Oh yeah, alright. Is there any mothership coming out? No, that's disappointing. Especially quite disappointing. One of the more depressing things I've ever seen, actually. Why can't he get a mothership? Oh, I know why. Because he's getting a mothership over here. Oh, thank you so much, White Raw. So look at this. Little one moves up here to try to kill off this pylon. Such versatility. We rarely ever see this. We saw this a little bit in QE versus QXC a few days ago. But this is really going to show that warping in is just totally kick-ass. Now watch how fast these Zealots are going to die. I would label that as fast. You just have to be careful with your siege tanks. Siege tanks are much better against Zealots than in StarCraft 1. So, but you need to make absolutely certain that they are sieged. A nice little move with the Reaper to make sure that we can get vision up there. But this is kind of the late game sacrifice that Little One's having to make. This expansion would be pretty easy to defend if all Little One has was a Marine Marauder Ghost Army with some air support. But the tanks make it a little bit more static. Look at that abuse. Oh my god, popping up here, killing this off. Stalkers with the blink, the warping from the pylon there, the warp prism up here, the storm drops over here. All that are abusing these tanks. Always abuse immobility. Now, I just want you to note that since that second big push from the Little One, White Ra has not really attacked in some huge battle. There hasn't been a major clash. Yet White Ra has been swinging way far ahead. Look at this. White Ra is at 173 versus 132. Oh my god, that's a gigantic leap forward. And it's so easy when you're trying to figure out a game to get in your head. You need the right unit mix. You need the right strategy. And you see these things where people say, I'm losing to Void Race. What do I get? And the next post is Vikings. And the third post is what that guy said. You know, it's so useful to think of, what's another way I can battle tanks instead of actually just attacking the tank? Instead of saying, oh yeah, what kills tanks? Immortals! And that's that. No, instead it's a mobility, the fact that tanks have to siege up, and you can exploit that. And that exploitation has been pivotal for our good friend, Captain Commander White Ra. So White Ra has two Immortals just hanging out here. Not doing too much. Looks like, oh yes, a mothership. Oh yes, indeed. I really wish that the mothership also had a range that you could warp in around it, so it'd just be the most unfairly kick-ass unit in the game. So it looks like these Those Immortals didn't play too big a part. Now, I just want you to look at this army and compare it to this army. I think it's pretty clear which one is scarier at this point in time. Notice we have a tank up here. We have 2 Marauders up here, some turrets trying to get made. We have some more Marauders in the main. I'm trying to figure out where more of Little One's units. Has some more here. No, this pretty much looks like the large extent of Little One's army. Perhaps there's some other things back here that could have been brought into the force. But I want you just to note that all this chipping that White Raw's been doing with the harass is really coming into play here. Doesn't even matter what White Raw does with those units. Little One ends up having to give the good game. And of course, Little One says, good game, and Micro's a little bit more. He didn't mean to. You know, when you play StarCraft that much, it's just an involuntary